welcome back to Max Reaction. How are you doing today? Hopefully you're doing good. I'm doing good. I'm doing great. Let me know where you're from in this world, this small world of ours. Anyway, we're going to react to 5 famous Philippine events that influenced the world. And there's a lot of events I can think off the top of my head that has influenced the world. But we're going to check this video out and see if it's any of the ones that I'm thinking of. Definitely check this channel out that I'm reacting to, Pinoy High Fives. Awesome channel. Go check it out. Go subscribe to them. But for now, let's see what we can learn.
Line to the Philippines. Here's what is happening now.
A pond can be a metaphor for mankind's history, wherein one event, even if it's tiny ripple, has the potential to make itself felt in a wide area. As for the Philippines, it may come as a surprise to somehow a geographically small country could influence events on a global scale.
Vast
However,
world.
the reality is that the Philippines had its fair share of events significant enough to influence the world in a big way. So let's revisit our history and check 5 famous Philippine events that influenced the world.
I'm excited. Probably have to do a few wars, but we'll see. We'll see.
EDSA Revolution, the beginning of other Iranic revolutions.
This is just the beginning.
Ooh.
Aside from ousting the Marcos dictatorship, one great impact of the first EDSA revolution was the impression it left on other countries reeling under authoritarian rule at the time. More explicitly, the general peacefulness which accompanied the ouster of an unpopular regime shocked the rest of the world accustomed to associating regime changes with violent revolutions. In the end, the successful non-violent Yellow Revolution sparked off other incidents of peaceful revolutions across the world. European countries under communist rule such as Poland, Czechoslovakia, and the Baltic states launched their own uprisings. In the neighboring Asian countries of Taiwan and South Korea, popular protests led to greater democratic reform.
Wow.
In Latin America, regimes belonging to such dictators as Augusto Pinochet crumbled. In South Africa, Nelson Mandela and his associates fought to end apartheid. Basically,
I love
the
Nelson
EDSA
Mandela.
revolution turned out to be the starting point of revolutions across the world in the 80s and 90s.
Whoa.
So it's the revolution was called EDSA Revolution. I just learned that. I did not know that when Marcos got overthrown. I know I've made a video and it discussed Marcos, and the video discussed Marcos in a very dark light. I don't know enough about Marcos to say anything positive or negative. I'm just learning from you guys, and through the comment section, at least on my channel, the majority of the people put Marcos in a positive light. For instance, I've had several people tell me back when he was over the Philippines, for $1 you only needed 2 pesos. So that's definitely a good thing. I've also heard almost everybody, if not everybody, had food to eat. So these are positive things that I've heard in the comment section. And then of course there's been a few negative ones too. I don't know. Keep telling me about Marcos and whatever you know about Marcos in the comment section, so I can learn as much as possible and so I can do research on the subject. But they say the revolution against Marcos caused all these other countries to have their own. So
The fall of the Philippines in World War II became the salvation of the rest of Asia and Australia.
Salvation lies within.
Although the surrender of the Filipino American forces to the Japanese in Bataan meant subjugation for the Filipinos for 3 long years, the defeat did have an important effect. It delayed Japan's timetable for conquest and ultimately saved Australia. While they had a relatively easy time conquering other places such as Singapore and Hong Kong, the Japanese, by a combination of hubris and underestimation, found themselves bogged down for 6 months in the Philippines against the stubborn defense put up the USAF forces, especially in Bataan. In fact, Masaharu Homma estimated that the Japanese would only need 50 days to conquer the entire archipelago. In Bataan alone, they fought fought against the defenders for 3 months. Ultimately, the valiant last stand of the Filipinos and Americans cost the Japanese dearly in terms of time, resources and manpower, allowing Australia and the US time to build up their own forces. British Prime Minister Winston Churchill would even laud the defenders in the Philippines for essentially stopping the erstwhile fast-conquering Japanese war machine.
Yes.
They conquered.
And absolutely, he is right. They've conquered other places so easily, and the Japan leaders said, "Oh, in 50 days we'll be through the Philippines. We'll control all of the Philippines." But guess what? Sadly mistaken. 3 months later, still fighting the Philippines. And we've done a lot of military and history videos on the Philippines on this channel, and we know how well trained and where their heart is. The Philippine soldiers are going to fight till they're dead or till the enemy's dead. There's no laying down the weapons. There is no surrendering. We've seen that multiple times, even in recent history in Syria, when the UN troops of the Philippines was ordered to lay their weapons down. No, you're talking to the wrong person, because we're not going to lay it down. And it was, that's heroic, It's heroic not to lay your weapons down. It's easy to. But you know what would happen? They would probably died, because they were already fighting these rebels. So for a general to tell them to lay their weapons down, you should go back in history before you start ordering these Filipino soldiers around, you know what I'm saying? Because it's not in their blood, and you should already know that. You think as a general, you should know your people. You should know the people you're over. You should know their heart and their mind. And that general didn't. He had, I don't know what he was thinking. He was just being a little wacky at the time. But anyway, absolutely right. Without the Philippines holding the Japan back, they may have very well swept, through Australia, like he's saying. And it'd be hard to stop. But thank you.
Philippine American War helped suppress the American imperialism.
I have seen war, and that I hate war.
While counterintuitive at first, the Philippine American War, which ended in American victory, really did dissuade the Americans from expanding further across Asia. The general bloodlines of the war and the economic costs had left the Americans exhausted. Imperialist designs effectively waned after the war, with even its most ardent of supporters admitting the US was not cut out for colony building, where many once viewed the Philippines as a vital outpost to the rest of Asia's riches. It was now seen as a huge liability. For one, US President Theodore Roosevelt, a big supporter of imperialism, admitted in 1906 that the Philippines had become America's Achilles heel, especially in the light of growing Japanese aggression. Such thinking inevitably contributed to the US isolationist policy in the 1930s and its seemingly half-hearted defense build-up of the country prior to World War II.
This form of treachery shall never again endanger us.
And he's correct on that. The United States wasn't good at colonizing places, and they shouldn't have been in the Philippines. They shouldn't have been in the Philippines, try and take it over, and harm these innocent people. It's just, I don't like that part of my country's history. I really don't. And he's basically saying the Philippines smacked, even though, they lost the war, the Philippines smacked the United States around so much and woke them up and like, hey, you can't do this. And it sounds like the United States is like, you know what? Yeah, we probably shouldn't have done that. We lost a lot. And let's not do that. So, yes, he is right. He is 1% right in my opinion.
Tubo's eruption contributed to Earth's climate.
I felt like a
lowered the temperature.
Volcano.
Considering it was the second largest volcanic eruption in the 20th century, only the 1912 eruption of Nova Rupta in the Alaskan Peninsula was bigger. The after effects of Mount Pinatubo were felt worldwide, particularly the huge amount of aerosols, the most since Krakatoa in 1883. It released into the Earth's stratosphere, affected the world's climate in a number of ways. Ozone levels decreased substantially due to the 20 million tons of sulfur dioxide Mount Pinatubo spewed out. Sunrises and sunsets became brighter due to the fine ashes and gases in the air. More significantly, temperature levels around the world dropped at an average of 1.5 degrees Celsius in 1992 and 1993 due to the increased amount of sunlight which was reflected back to space by the sulfur dioxide in the atmosphere.
You think that's air you're breathing now?
And to think about it, you know, he said it was the second biggest eruption in the world in the 20th century. And then it got me thinking, well, the Philippines have also had the biggest, most intense hurricane, typhoon. You know, you guys call it typhoon in the eastern hemisphere, western is hurricane. It's the same thing that hit the Philippines. The biggest, strongest. So they've had the second biggest eruption in the volcano, and the Philippines has also had the biggest typhoon. That's just mind-boggling to think about. It really is. And you know, the typhoon had a worldwide effect too, because it brought nations together to donate. Yeah.
Rizal's execution influenced the death of Spanish Prime Minister.
No trial, no jury, straight to execution.
Rizal.
Aside from helping to ignite the Philippine Revolution, Jose Rizal's execution also played a role in the death of the Spanish Prime Minister. On August 8, 1897, an Italian anarchist named Michel Angin Golli shot at point-blank range Spanish Premier Antonio Canovas del Castillo outside a spa. After being interrogated, Golli said he killed Canovas to avenge his fellow anarchists who had been imprisoned and executed in the castle of Montjuic, Barcelona. He also dedicated his act as a retribution for the death of Don Jose Rizal and expressed regret for his failure to kill Camilo de Polavieja, the Spanish Governor-General under whom Rizal was executed. As to how Rizal became involved with the anarchists, he may have formed a connection with them during his brief imprisonment at the very same castle.
Brian, there's some bad people in here.
You don't have to be a late time machine just to see.
Yeah, and Rizal, like he said, played a big part then and now, because what happened after his death and because of his death, the Philippines wouldn't be the same without it, you know. And it's hard to say, you know, because I say the Philippines wouldn't be the same without his death, but what if he never did die? I mean, what great things would he have done then, you know? We're never going to know. The man was brilliant. The man was a genius. And I've recently learned about him, and I did a reaction on him, and I've actually did more research on my own off camera, and the guy is just fascinating. Absolutely fascinating in my opinion. But anyway, you've heard my thoughts, you've heard my reactions all through the video. What are you thinking of each of these 5 cases? Comment down below. I love your thoughts. I mean, my subscriber family, you guys throw some really thoughtful comments out there. The majority I'm positive. A lot of them I can learn from, because you're telling me different histories of the Philippines, and I really appreciate it, because some of the stuff can't be found online. Some of it's got to be found through you guys. And I know a lot of people say, man, Max, I learned something in one of your videos, one of your reactions that I didn't know. But I promise you that I learned way more from all of you guys and ladies than you learn from me. I promise that. I've learned so much. My knowledge of the Philippines is increasing each and every day. And of course, I'm gonna pass that down to my young son, of course, to my older son. He's, you know, he may not be Filipino like my younger son is, but he's really interested in the Philippines. He's been to the Philippines twice already, and he's only 10 years old. So I think that's a good start for him, since, you know, he's not even Filipino at all. But anyway, I just want to thank you guys. Anyway, comment down below if you want to join the family. Hit the subscribe button. For now, I'll see you next time. Peace, love, happiness, spread it around the world.